Hey up troops, A Littleton here again with another video, and this time we're going to look at every single attacker weapon and which attachments that I use and which I think are best. So, do you want one of these? Or do you want one of these? We'll go through every single gun. Now, as I say at the start of every video like this is not clickbait. I'm not going to tell you which gun's going to give you no recoil. It's not one of those videos. Get no recoil on the SMG11 in year 8. No, you'll have recoil on every single gun. But this is what I like to use, and it might not be the same for you, but if it works for me, and I'm rubbish and old, it's got to work for someone else as well. Now, I will just warn you and say there is a pattern that emerges throughout these weapons. I tend to use the very similar muzzle attachments and a very similar grip attachment. The scopes do vary between guns, because I do feel that 2Xs feel better on some guns, obviously 1.5s on others. But I do tend to have a pattern. There are some guns that are different, but don't expect it to be like world-changing. Oh my god, he plays a compensator and a red dot J on Jaeger. That site doesn't exist, but you know what I mean. That's enough waffling. We've all had enough. Let's just get stuck into it. Right then, all attackers, starting with Sledge, in order right the way through to Ram. Which loadout should you be using, which guns, and which secondary gadgets are the best to take? Sledge, gotta be L85, gotta be frag grenades. Don't forget, if you scroll down on Sledge, you've also got EMPs. Yes, you can use EMPs in an absolute crunch if you have to and you've got no other option. But man, you've got to be taking frags on Sledge. The L85 is one of the most reliable guns on attack. Yes, shotguns have been buffed, but the L85 is arguably top 5 guns on attack, I think. It's so reliable. There's very little recoil. On the L85, I run a 1X and a flash hider with a vert grip. 1X is the most magnification you can have. The flash hider and the vert grip just go well. You'll find that I run flash hider on vert grip on a lot of guns. There's a couple that I don't, but most of them are flash hider and vert grip. That's Sledge. Moving on, we've got Thatcher. Exactly the same scenario with the L85, except Thatcher can have a 2X. If you can take a 2X on the L85, obviously with Thatcher, I highly recommend you do. You can obviously have the 1.5 as well, but the 2X on Thatcher, the 2X on the L85, I'm telling you, man, there's just something about it. Take it into a free-for-all, stick a 2X, a flash hider, and a vert on it, and the L85 is an absolute monster. You can also have the AR-33, and there's no right or wrong answer between the two here. This is all just on preference. I think the L85 is a better weapon, but the AR-33 has a better fire rate, but slightly less damage. I don't think the fire rate's enough to warrant taking it over the L85, especially given the 2X on the L85. Moving on to Ash. This is one of the most compelling operators that we're going to talk about in this entire attacking video. The G36 has become one of the most favorable guns on attack at the moment, and the R4C is an absolute classic. If you can control recoil, there is no better gun or no better feeling in Siege than getting frags with an R4C. I run Holloway on most things, but I run Holloway, Vert, and Flash Hider. The G36, however, has very little recoil, so I'll run an extended barrel on the G36 to give you that extra little bit of damage. As you can see down on the bottom right, damage is 42. If I put a flash hider on that, it goes down to 38. The recoil on the G36 is non-existent. I run a vert because I've got the extended barrel. If you were running flash, you could probably get away with running angle grip. Although, as I said at the start of the video, the angle grip these days, the benefits that it gives you for ADS in a little bit faster really isn't much. It's not worth taking, in my opinion. So 1.5 an extended barrel for G36. Sidearm pistols, it's up to you. I always take the M45 because it does a lot more damage, but it does have far less rounds in the mag. As you can see, there's 7 capacity as opposed to 20. Breaching charges or claymores. If you've got no one to watch the flank and Ash is going to be in a position where she can make use of claymores, sure. What people aren't really doing that much with Ash anymore is playing vertically. Just 3 breaching charges and 2 breaching rounds. That's a lot of vertical capability. Ash is a great operator to go above. You can hold your own flanks possibly, but obviously then you lose the breaching rounds. But take the breaching rounds, take the breaching charges, and you've got 5 ways of making vertical holes. Really good operator for playing vertically at the minute. Me personally, I run the R4C. I just like the way it feels. I can control the recoil. If you struggle with the recoil, the G36 is a great option as well. Moving on to none other than my favourite operator in the entire game. It's Mr. Thermite. Look, I've never ever played Thermite Shotgun. If you play Thermite Shotgun, good luck to you. The 5.56 is one of the best guns in the game. It's very, very similar stats to the L85 of Sledge and Thatcher. It's got a bit more recoil than the L85 though. I like running a 2X or a 1.5. I sort of change it up depending what mood I'm in. It's one of the few guns that's worth taking the ACOG on these days, because a lot of the fights that you're going to take with Thermite, I keep wanting to say Thatcher, it's really difficult to not say Thatcher. A lot of the fights that you're going to take with Thermite are going to be at a distance. I sometimes take a 2x, I sometimes take a 1.5. It just depends what mood I'm in. Flash Hider and Vert again. Same scenario with Ash on the pistols or on the M45 because it does more damage. And again, it depends on the situation that you're in. Do you take smoke or flashes? I personally take smoke, so I feel like a Thermite, when you're on like a breached wall, you can like smoke deep, you can smoke a rotate, or you can smoke a line of sight deep, which allows you to get into that breach a bit more effectively than a flashbang would. Or a stun grenade, sorry. Moving over to Twitch. Now, this, again, not many operators on attack get 3 options. The F2 is an absolute beast of a gun, but the recoil at the moment is a bit ridiculous. I'm not a massive DMR fan because I'm a bit crap at hitting my first shot. However, recently I've been using Twitch, attacking bank basement using this DMR. On the DMR, I run the classic ACOG, the muzzle brake, and the vert grip. Very little recoil if you're pulling down and tap firing as quick as you can. The pistols, I run the P9, and I think you should too. The Magnum, yeah, it does an outrageous amount of damage at 78, but there's a lot of kickback on the recoil, and there's only 6 bullets in there. Whereas with the P9, you're getting 16, and the damage is still 45. You know, it's still a decent amount of damage for a sidearm. I always run smokes instead of claymores, unless there's a particular site that I'm attacking, say, clubhouse, garage, for example, and you know you're going to need to hold a run out with a claymore. I just think smokes are a really, really underutilized thing in Siege. Just like in CSGO, there's like whole attacks based around smoke grenades. I just don't think you see that much in Siege. So for me, Twitch, I haven't really summarized that, but the F417 at the minute, the F2, when the recoil gets brought back under control, the F2 is an absolute monster of a gun on attack. The thing that it's missing is they took the vert grip away. If they give the vert grip back to the F2, I think we've got a chance of playing the F2 again at some point. Moving on to none other than Monty. Not much to say here apart from his sidearms, or sorry, his secondary utility, because all 3 are really, really good options. But I always run the P9. You should too. If you're playing Monty, you can't be using the Magnum on Monty, I'm afraid, because you only get 6 shots. It's not reliable enough when you're trying to like hip fire and you're getting pushed. You've only got 6 shots. If you're hitting headshots every time, then hey, maybe it's for you. But it's got to be the P9 on Monty, especially. Make sure you've got a laser sight on it. You have to have a laser sight on it because you're going to be doing a lot of hip firing behind that shield. You want to make sure your hip fire is far more accurate than it is without the laser sight. Sidearm, for me, I usually take hard breach charges or EMPs. I know smokes are picked at the minute. That's because I was doing a custom game a little while ago. I don't really play Monty that often, to be honest with you. But hard breach and EMPs are a great shout. Remember, if you're playing Monty, you can stack the hard breach charges one on top of the other, so you can make a walkable rotate. But the EMPs are a really good secondary gadget, obviously, but it works well with a Thermite. If you're pushing a breach, you can EMP the wall, he can open the wall, and then you walk in as the Monty. You've got to be taking the P9 then, man. I knew I was going to press escape one too many times at one point throughout this video. Moving on to Glaz. Not many choices on the primary weapon when it comes to Glaz. However, secondary weapons where it gets interesting for Glaz. If you're going to be getting aggressive and you're going to be pushing and you're going to be taking up some close quarter fights, you want to be taking the bearing. On the bearing, I run either Hollow B. I don't know what it is about Hollow B on the bearing. It just feels nice. Or Hollow A. I run a laser sight and a flash hider. I tend to do a lot of sort of aggressive pushes with the bearing, so I don't need to worry about holding angles. Like laser sights give you away when you're holding angles. I don't need to worry about that when I'm pushing with Glaz because I won't be standing still holding an angle. I'll just be pushing the sight if we're getting close quarters. The Gon 6 is good if you're holding a longer angle. So if you're playing, I don't know, say Gym on Clubhouse and you want to hold a longer angle, you got to get rid of a castle barricade. Further distance, then by all means take the Gon 6. But if you're going to be getting up close and personal, getting aggressive and getting active, make sure you're taking the bearing. I don't think you should ever take claymores with Glaz. The smoke obviously leads into Glaz's ability with his main rifle, but the frag grenades are so strong at the moment with Glaz. Don't forget, by the way, Glaz is a 3-speed these days. That often gets forgotten. Don't forget he's a 3-speed, so you can get super aggressive with Glaz with a bearing and frags. However, the smokes play into what Glaz does. You can cut off great angles and then hold those very same angles. I think you've got to be taking smokes, really, unless you've got a really specific job to do. Maybe take the frags. On his main weapon, I run Hollow A and Muzzle Brake. There's a great thing to say to take Red Dot C on Glaz because it gives you a really clean, you can't really see from this preview, but it gives you just a really clean dot in the middle of the scope once you've started magnifying it using his magnification. Obviously, it's a DMR, so we're going to run a muzzle brake and a vert grip. Moving on to fuse. You know what's a good quiz, actually? We should do which operator comes next. Like, I would never remember the operators in order after like the first 10. Onto fuse. I've got the LMG selected, but it was a bit of a troll. You've got to go AK-12 on attack. It's probably the best gun on attack. You've got a 2x with it, which feels nice. Obviously, a 1.5 if you don't like the 2x, if it's too much. Flash hider and vert every time on the AK. The recoil is pretty aggressive, but it's absolutely manageable with a flash hider and a vert grip. It's the best gun on attack, I'm going to say it. PMM is probably the best or one of the best sidearms that isn't a machine pistol in the game. So when you're talking just pistols, like there's a decent amount in there. You get 8, but look at the damage, 61 damage on the PMM. Really, really good. I always call it a PPM, and I don't know why, but it's a PMM. With fuses loadout, you can either run the breach charges or the hard breaches, even though I think smokes are great, and I'm contradicting what I said earlier on by saying this. Fuse works a lot better with breaches or hard breaches, but that's because he's a vertical operator. So you're going to be above the sight mostly with fuse. So you can either bring breaching charges to make lines of sight and soft floors, or you can bring hard breach charges to get the reinforced hatches. 99s out of... I've cocked it up. 99 times out of 10. I take hard breach charges because I'm going to be getting a reinforced hatch. I'm thinking about attacking border top floor. I'm thinking about attacking coastline top floor. Attacking coastline kitchen, so I'll be on the top floor. I'm going to be opening a couple of hatches, so I'll be taking the hard breach charges. I can't believe I've cocked up the 99 times out of 10. I'm fuming. Blitz. Don't play Blitz is my answer. No, I'm just kidding. You don't get an option. You've got to run muzzle brake and laser, though. Again, the same reasons as Monty. You're going to be doing a lot of hip firing behind that shield. You want to make sure you've got the benefit to the laser. The muzzle brake. I haven't mentioned this, by the way, but a muzzle brake, what that does is once you've fired one shot, the muzzle brake brings the crosshair back into the middle quicker than if you didn't have a muzzle brake on. So if you tap fired as quick as you could with a DMR or a pistol without a muzzle brake, the crosshair would go up, and up much faster than it would than if you had a muzzle brake on. That's the best way of sort of explaining that. I'd be able to explain it more if I had a gun on the screen. I could show you. Blitz, you've really got to be taking smoke grenades. You can burn ADSs for your team, but you can also cut off angles and push through. You're not really ever going to be doing vertical play with breaching charges with Blitz, if I'm honest with you. But not much of a choice with Blitz. IQ, this is a really interesting one. And I could spend probably 5 minutes talking about IQ's weapon options here because it's massively underrated, I feel. Just to start with the secondary gadgets, breaching charges, claymores, same as Ash. If you're playing above, take breaches. If you're holding a flank, take claymores. Probably take breaches as standard. Only flick to claymores when you've got to. Pistol, muzzle, and laser every single time. But the primary weapons, the 5.52 has almost the same stats as Thermite's gun and Sledge's gun. So almost the same as the 5.56 and the L85. The AUG is outrageously good on attack because you get a 1.5 or a 2x or an ACOG. And I run a suppressor on it because it just feels right. Now, I completely understand if you want to run a flash hider, but there's something about the AUG with a suppressor where it just feels good. I don't know what it is. I can't put a finger on it, but it just feels right. The G8 is a monster of a gun. The only thing that lets the G8 down is you've only got 1x scopes on there, but it's absolutely outrageous. It's got a decent damage output of 37. The fire rate is through the roof at 850. But this is the key thing here, is 50 capacity. So even though it's essentially an LMG, you can still reload it just as fast as you can an AR. So it's just a monster of a gun. It's up there for me. If you could stick a 1.5 on that, like you can with a Maru, it'd be outrageous for IQ. But really, I would probably still take the G8 as long as you're okay with 1x scopes. But look, if you say the 5.52 or the AUG and you prefer either of them, I couldn't. By the way, I've just realized I've got full black eyes with IQ. I could never hold it against you. I've seen people use the 5.52 and they're absolutely slaying with it. And I've seen people use the AUG also doing really well. But the G8 for me is just so good. By the way, on the G8, run the flash hider and the vert grip because the recoil is a little bit kicky. So just give yourself a bit of a chance with the flash hider and the vert. Mr. Buck, you don't get a lot of choice here. Again, it's just an AR or a DMR. I know people who like the cameras or CAMRS, whatever you want to call it. I'm not a big DMR guy, but The C8 is, again, like I said with Sledge and like the AK, it's up there for me. The damage is high, the fire rate is high, so that generally means the recoil is also high, which it is, but it's absolutely manageable as long as you stick a flash hider on there. You can't put a grip on Buck's gun because there's a shotgun underneath where the grip would normally go, but the recoil is high, but it's absolutely manageable with a flash hider. 1.5 for me, obviously, where available. Sidearm, Gon 6, hard breach charges. If you haven't got to get reinforced hatches, then yeah, take the flashes to try and be a bit more aggressive. But if you're playing above, making vert angles, you're probably going to have to get a hatch or two. So the hard breach charges come in really, really useful. Buck up is probably right up there for me in top 5 operators, top 10 operators at the minute, even though I did just make a top 5 operators video and I did put Buck in there. So I've got to say he's top 5, right? Blackbeard. Interesting one, this. Blackbeard's AR, which is the AR that I like using in most games, it's called the Scar in a lot of other games, is really, really good. It's just the capacity is so low. The damage is half decent, but look at the fire rate is pretty poor compared to what we've just been looking at for the C8, for example. So it's okay. You get a lot of choice of sights. I think, in short, just don't play Blackbeard at the minute. He's really not a good operator to be playing. Yes, he gets the EMPs, but flashes if you want to be aggressive. His DMR is one of the better DMRs. If you want to hold long angles on bank on the windows, I could probably make an argument for using it because obviously you've got the shield as well, but still don't think Blackbeard's where he needs to be at the moment. The Eagle is a secondary, as always. Laser and laser and muzzle brake. I don't know why I've got a suppressor on there. Must have been doing something for that. Normally I have a muzzle brake and a flasher. Sorry, the muzzle brake and a laser. Yeah, so just don't really play. Don't play Blackbeard. Obviously, it's a DMR, so we go muzzle brake and vert grip. You'd have to really convince me a decent reason as to why you're playing a Blackbeard over another operator at the moment. Capitao. This is one of my favorite guns in all of the game. The Para 308. Brava gets it as well. But on the Para, I run an extended barrel for that extra damage. Look at the damage on the Para. 52 damage with an extended barrel. If you're running a flash ID, you're getting 47. The recoil on the Para is very, very little. Therefore, running an extended barrel is absolutely warranted. You take the vert grip to just give you a bit more of a chance with the extended barrel, but the recoil isn't very high. The damage is outrageous. This has to be one of the all-round best guns on attack at the moment. Really, really good. Capitao's LMG isn't too bad. It suffered from the LMG nerf that was that happened a couple of seasons ago now, 3 seasons ago or so. So it's difficult to try and make a case for it when the Para's so good. But even just a standard look, damage 48, you can't put an extended barrel on it, but it's still got decent damage, a half decent fire rate, and obviously 100 rounds in the mag. It does take a week and a half to reload. That's the only problem. You've got to book a week off work to get it reloaded. But I think it's hard to make a case for the M249 when the Para at the minute is so good. You've got to be running a Gon 6 and you've got to be running the hard breach charges. Capitao, again, has got one of the most insane loadouts. And I'm going to make a Capitao video very soon about where he's useful because I just don't see him played enough. Like, there's so many anchor spots that you can use this crossbow to get flame bolts in and push people out, especially on some of the new maps. Obviously, like Nighthaven Labs, I can think of a couple of places where I want to be using that crossbow. So, yeah, Para 308, absolutely all day for me. On to Habana. Now, this is an interesting one as well because Habana's shotgun at the minute, look at the size of that silencer. Habana's shotgun at the minute with the shotgun changes is super strong. Echo gets the same shotgun. Amaru gets the same shotgun. It's really, really good. Still, despite the changes, I'm still not mad keen on shotguns personally, and it's even more difficult to be mad keen on shotguns when your Type 89 is the next best gun. If the Type 89 had more capacity than 20, it would be top 3 guns. The recoil isn't too bad. The fire rate is high. And the damage is high. Like, the time to kill with the Type 89 is right up there with the AK. The only thing is you've got such limited capacity, but don't worry because your sidearm is a bearing 9. So yeah, again, look at the stats of the bearing 9, man. It's not bad. 33 damage, 1100 fire rate. It's insane. So I would always run Type 89 and bearing 9. With the Type 89, I flick between 1.5 and 1x, like hollow. I think the 2x and the ACOG are a little bit too scoped in for, it's a little bit too zoomed in for how high the recoil is on this gun. If you can use an ACOG and still cope with that recoil, then fair play. I think it's a little bit too much. I'm running a 1.5 or a 1x with the flash hider and the vert grip. And on the bearing, same as Glaz again, hollow away and flash hider. I sometimes run a laser, but I tend to hold more angles than I do with Glaz. So it's not always the best to run a laser because you're going to give yourself away a little bit. Breaching charges or flashbangs, depending on the size, I change. If you've got to make the vertical, obviously you want the breaching charges, but if not, I usually take flashbangs 99 times out of 10. Wayo. Thanks for the fidget spin, Havana. On to the next. We've got Mr. Jackal. Another good conversation to have. This shotgun, even after all the changes, is still poo, so don't worry about that shotgun. The C7 or the PDW is where you want to find yourself. The C7 got a recoil nerf a few seasons ago, probably about a year or two ago now, actually. It's been that long. But it's still very usable with a flash hider and a vert grip. The thing is, man, this PDW is an absolute beast. I'm running an angle grip and a flash hider because the recoil really isn't that bad. If you want to put a vert grip on there, you really can. Like the angle grip benefits these days are so minimal, it's not really worth not getting the recoil benefits of a vert grip. But a 1.5, a flash hider and a vert grip, this gun is a beast. The only thing is it can feel a little bit light at times because the damage is quite low. It's only got 34 damage compared to, like, you look at the C7, it's running 42. So you're getting like 8 damage a shot more. The only thing is with the PDW, obviously the fire rate is super high. Actually, no, it's not compared to the C7. I thought the fire rate was way higher than that. The fire rate's exactly the same across those two guns. The PDW feels like it's got a miles higher fire rate. That's interesting. Secondary for Jackal, you've got to be taking the shotgun whenever you've got an option. You can open soft hatches, new lines of sight. You can even play him as a vertical operator using the shotgun a little bit like Buck. And you've got to be taking smokes over claymores. Again, if the situation arises where you need a claymore, fine, take one. But as standard, you've got to be running shotgun and smoke. This, I can't tell you on this. It's completely up to you which one the better option is. I'm still running flash and vert on that. I'm still running flash and vert on this as well. It all just depends what feels better for you. Slightly higher damage, slightly less damage, but more capacity. I just think the PDW feels good, man. I can't explain it. But give it a try. Let me know how you get on. Ying, what a gun Ying's got, man. Ying's T95 is insanely good. There's loads of scope options all the way up to an ACOG. Flash and vert because there can be a bit of a kick, but you're getting 80 rounds that reloads as fast as an assault rifle with a 650 fire rate on 46 damage. 46 damage. No option for an extended barrel, but 46 damage. There's something about this gun that makes me want to run a 1X. I think it's probably because I tend to be a bit more aggressive with Ying than you are with other operators, so you don't want to be charging into a room with an ACOG. The 1.5 you could probably get away with, but I just like using the 1X. There's very little recoil on the gun, and you've got 80 rounds at 46 damage. It's really good. It's a little bit underrated, but there's a reason why. In the most recent stage of EUL, Ying is one of the most banned operators, yet you never see Ying banned in ranked. The 612, I don't use shotguns. I've never ever played a round of Siege with this shotgun, but when I was doing the shotgun testing, it was really good. You're running a 1X and a laser on it. You've always got to run a laser on a shotgun for me, in my opinion. But if you want to run the shotgun, you could probably make a case for that these days, although it's such a low capacity shotgun at 6. It's really low. Hard breach charges if you're playing above. Smokes if you're getting aggressive and pushing into sight. I feel like I'm repeating myself with these because it's the same for every operator, but generally speaking with Ying, I run the T95 and the hard breach charge, and I'll push an area of the map which isn't, it's like usually the other side of the map. So on New Consulate, I'll push round to the, what's called like the sort of electrical, the smaller, what do you call it? You know what I mean? Like the new sort of garagey type area at the back of the map that leads down to the bottom of the basement. I tend to push that side just as a lone person, but I can take my own, lone player, but I can take my own hard breach charge to get through the reinforced wall there. I've pressed go back too many times there. On to Zoph. Zoph's a great operator with a couple of good guns, although the LMG's in the dirt a little bit at the moment with the LMG nerfs. You've got to be taking flash and vert. You could even argue with the LMGs to take a compensator to try and help with that horizontal recoil, but you want to be going flash and vert really for me. I just don't think you should be taking the LMG at the minute. M762 has got higher recoil than it used to have, but it's still a very good option. Flash and vert, and for some reason the 2X works for me on this weapon. It's an interesting one. There's a lot of 1.5s where I'll use, but use the 1.5 when it's available. But for me, the 2x just works with this weapon. Onto the sidearm, and you don't get much of a choice, but you take in muzzle and laser because it's a pistol. And then, again, like we said with Ash, Zoth is a decent operator to play above. I take Zoth a lot of the time when I'm attacking the basement on Canal, and I'll make vertical holes above and try and get kills with Zoth above. And then you've got the concussions when you want to get aggressive and push underneath. You forget how mad that is as a weapon, don't you? Like as a thing, there's just 2 charges in there already. Like a little, it just whips it out of a pocket. Insane. Dokkaebi, we've got a DMR and the Bosch G, the meme G, the meme shotgun. 2 shots, man. Yes, it does a lot of damage, but if you're being serious and you want to win a game, you're not using the Bosch G, let's be honest. Yes, it's fun, and yes, it's fine and casual. If you're playing ranked and your teammate's taking a Bosch G, you're probably getting thrown. MK14 is great. With it being a DMR, again, I run muzzle brake and vert grip. I run a 2x on this, although I do tend to run ACOGs on most DMRs. I feel like the 2x feels right on this gun. Sidearm is an SMG-12, which has insane recoil, so you've got to be taking the vert grip, and I run the laser because I try and hip fire it a little bit as well. I don't enjoy the C75 at all. You get very little options in terms of sight. So when I say very little options, I mean 0 options. You can tell I've never used this on Dokkaebi because I haven't even got a skin on it. But yeah, I don't really like it. It doesn't give you a clean iron sight. It doesn't give you a clean view through the iron sights. I don't like using the C75, but if you do, run a laser, and you only get an option for a suppressor if you want it. There's no option to put a flash hider or anything on because it's essentially just a pistol with an extended mag, I believe. So yeah, put the suppressor on because you might as well. Lion, this is a good one. Lion's gun is really, really solid. 2x flash hider vert. Again, the 2x just feels right on this, but you can run a 1.5 if you want to. A decent size mag, again, 50 rounds, decent damage, decent fire rate. One of the better guns on attack. Really, really, really solid attack weapon. But yeah, 2x flash hider vert. The DMR is exactly the same as Twitch's DMR, and again, I run the same thing. ACOG, muzzle, vert. I don't run the shotgun, but if you do, you've got to have a 1x, a vert grip, and a laser. If you get an option for a vert grip on a shotgun, stick it on because it's going to help you bring it down as you're spraying. The sidearms for Lion, by the way, I was getting a bit too keen there. He gets 3, which is not very common at all. You've got to be running the Gon 6. You're never really going to run out of 50 rounds of ammo to the point where you need a sidearm. So at least take the Gon 6 to help you get rid of the Defender utility. And then either flashes or EMPs. If your team's got EMPs, don't need them. Then take the flashes. Or if you need EMPs to get a breach, obviously take the EMPs. Finka, it's just one of the most underwhelming operators at the minute in the entire pool. The Spear 308 is the best option for her. You can have up to a 1.5, sorry, up to a 2x, my bad. You can have up to a 2x. Again, I go flash hider and vert. I'm not going to spend long talking about Finka. I go Spear, PMM. Sorry, I don't do that at all. Andy, slow down, Andy. Have a breath. Have a breather, mate. I go Spear, Gon 6, and flashes. And I try and get a little bit more aggressive. You could run the PMM if you're not getting rid of utility, but I don't know. I just think when there's an option to have a Gon 6, it really just gives you less of a headache to be able to get rid of utility like Banshees and Castle Barricades, etc., etc. Maverick, great gun on attack. One of the undersung weapons on attack. 44 damage with a 750 fire rate is right up there. It reminds me a little bit of what the R4C used to be like, but with a slightly less fire rate. I always run, guess what? A flash hider and a vert and a 1.5. You can have a 2x, but I just feel like the recoil's a little bit too much for a 2x. So I don't tend to use the 2x too much, just the 1.5 for me. Don't forget you can get the Elevate skin in the store right now. Directly supports the orc. Thanks very much. The AR-15 is a decent DMR, although I don't use DMRs. I feel like it's got a much less capacity than other DMRs. Like it's down at 10. But again, muzzle brake and vert grip if you're running a DMR. I could have just made a video that said, run a 1.5 where you can with a flash hider and a vert grip. And also on DMRs, run a muzzle brake and a vert grip. And that would have been the video sorted. But anyway, onto the secondary. Obviously, we've only got one option. But on the flashes to claymores, same thing again. If you're getting aggressive or you need to cut off angles, use the flashes. Or if you've got to hold flanks, like if you're attacking Big Tower in Oregon and you've got no one to watch it back, then take the claymores instead. Nomad, this is an interesting one because 2 very viable guns on attack. I run the AK because I think that the ARX is a little bit light on the capacity front, especially because their sidearms aren't the best. The AK as well, by the way, is got more sorry, I was going to say more of a capacity. That's not the right thing to say, is it? It's got a higher capacity than most other guns at 40. Decent damage. The fire rate's a little bit slow, but it's really, really solid. 44,650 compared to the ARX of 47,700. So slightly higher damage, slightly higher fire rate, but you do suffer by only having 66% of the capacity of a regular gun at 30, but half of the capacity of the AK. Sidearm, look, you've got the hand solo pistol and the PRB. The hand solo pistol is absolute garbage, if I'm being completely honest, unless you're going for a one-tap montage. The PRB is a decent sidearm. It's not bad at all. It does its job. 15 capacity, 42 damage. Stick a muzzle brake and a laser on there and you're laughing. You don't get that option on the hand solo pistol. You can only put a laser on there because there's already a scope built on, but you can't also put any muzzle attachments on there. Flashes or breaching charges. You can play vertical. I did this last night on stream. You can play vertical as Nomad and just cover your own flanks with air jabs and then start playing vertical with these breaching charges. If you're getting a bit more aggressive, take the flashes. I feel like I'm repeating myself on that point now. Where were we? Nomad. Over to Gridlock. By the way, this is one of the most underrated guns on attack. The F90 is great. Little to no recoil, 38 damage, decent fire rate, a really good gun. It's one of those where I like running a 2x. You can have an ACOG, but I like running a 2x or a 1.5. It's another one of those guns, a little bit like... who else's gun did I say the 2x feels right on? Lion, and a little bit like Lion and Jackal. The 2x, there's just something about it where it feels right. The LMG for Gridlock isn't too bad. It hasn't suffered from the recoil nerf, I don't feel, as much. But yeah, the F90 is definitely the better option. 2x and a flash hider and a vert grip for me. You've then got a couple of interesting options as the sidearms because you've got a super shorty and a Gon 6. I run the super shorty because I like playing above, like I just said with Nomad. You can hold your own flanks and you can make a little bit of vertical with the super shorty. If not, you've got the Gon 6 to get rid of utility. There's no real reason to run the SDP for me. Either run the super shorty or the Gon 6. Always stick a laser on the Gon 6 as well because it just helps you to get through floors a little bit easier if you're ADS with a laser on. Then we've got EMP, smokes, or breaches. You could do the vertical above by holding your own flanks with the tracks, but EMPs if you want to get a wall open, or smokes if you need to cover lines of sight. I'm repeating myself on the second on like the gadgets now. Like everyone knows what smokes are for and breaching charges are for. Don't know why I keep saying that every time, but you know what I'm getting at. Generally, EMPs I think are the better option, but if you've got a Thatcher on the board, there's no point taking EMPs. So on to Knock. A massively overrated operator. If Knock didn't have grenades, you'd never ever see her played. A really not a great gun for attack, but people still think it's mint, but it's really not that good. Like, look at the damage. It's so low compared to most other attacker guns. 34 damage, decent fire rate, but it's still a pea shooter compared to most other attacker guns. The shotgun is the same as Legion and Ying's, I believe. Is there some differences? I think there might be. Has this got a built-in silencer and the others haven't, or something like that? But still, only 6 bullets in the shotgun, not the best option. You've got a Deagle or a 5.7. You've got to be taking the Deagle. By the way, muzzle brake and laser on every pistol. On the FMG, you want to be taking the 1.5 because you can, and the flash hider. You can't put a vert grip on it. I think that might make the gun a little bit easier to work with if you could put a vert on, but you can't. So next options then, it's not even worth talking about, is it? You've got to be taking frag grenades. It's the only reason to play Knock at the minute. I don't know why people absolutely buzz off her because a utility and a gadget is really, really not used that often. I don't know why I keep pressing back too many times. Amaru, this is an interesting one. What a skin that is, by the way. Amaru, G8, and this is the beauty, right? A 1.5 on the G8 with a flash hider and a vert grip is a monster. It's an absolute monster. It's so, so good. Like we said with IQ, 37 damage, but 850 fire rate with 50 rounds in the mag. You can get 3 or 4 kills in one mag, no problem. Also gets the Supernova, which is a fantastic shotgun, like we said earlier. If you're getting into an engagement early, the Supernova, when you ADS now, has an unbelievable range, but I find it so hard to choose that over a G8 with a 1.5. This is mad then, because you get like the best of every single world as a sidearm. SMG-11, secondary shotgun, or Gon 6. You're not really going to get most use out of the Gon 6 as a Maru because you're going to be rappelling into sight. Usually, or into the map where it's going to get fruity pretty quickly, and you're not going to get use out of a Gon 6 generally, unless you want to get rid of a castle barricade that you're about to rappel into. The SMG-11 just gives you that comfort as a sidearm to know that once you're in the map, if you run out of rounds if you're running out of 50, you're struggling, but if you run out of 50 rounds, you can dive over to the SMG11. On the SMG11, by the way, I always run muzzle brake, which sounds a bit weird, but shout out Hard Baguette for this. Run muzzle brake and vert grip. Sometimes when I miss a couple of shots, I'll blame the muzzle brake and I'll go back to a flash hider on the SMG11. But most of the time these days I run a muzzle brake. There's just something about it that feels right. Get into the shooting range and give it a try yourself. Something just feels good about it at the minute. The ITA, run a laser and a 1X, obviously. That you're not going to ADS very often when you're in a fight with these type of shotguns, so I tend to put like a bit of a meme scope on there. Put something like this on there, just so it looks funny when you're walking around the map opening vertical play. I mean, how ridiculous does that look? Maru, on to Kali. Right, well, guess what primary we're going to use? I think we'll probably use this. You don't get any customization with this weapon, which is a bit of a shame, but you can now put an attachment skin on, which you couldn't do before. But anyway, I think that might be a mistake, you know. You can't normally choose an attachment skin, and that only came out this season. That must be a slight mistake. Yeah, you don't get a choice there. Secondary, this SMG is decent. The extended barrel gives it that damage boost to 36 from 33. The recoil isn't too bad. It's nowhere near what the Bearing 9 is or what the SMG11 is. It's well worth using this SMG. You can actually get pretty aggressive and pretty active with Kali, and Clash also has this SMG as well. You can get pretty aggressive with it, and it's worth taking. It's miles better than the C75, miles better than the P226. But run an extended barrel just to give you that little damage boost, because the recoil isn't too bad to begin with anyway. Then we've got Iona. Similar story as to what we spoke about with Nomad. The ARX for me is just it's very light on the capacity. The G36 at the minute is so good. Like we said with Ash, I've got that extended barrel 1.5 vert grip on there. Gives you that damage boost up to 42. Yes, the ARX is a good gun and Shiko's unbelievable with it, but that doesn't mean that we're unbelievable with it, so don't fall into that trap. Having 20 rounds can really can come unstuck quite easily. You only get 1x sights with it as well. You get the wonder of a 1.5 on the G36. Bear in mind, by the way, that the ARX has the same iron sights as an MP7, so if you ever wanted to run iron sights, I know a lot of people run iron sights on Bandit, you could also run iron sights on that as well. Secondary, MK1, guess what? Muzzle brake and laser. And then frags, obviously, for a secondary utility. Ace. Oh, nice picture, Ace. Onto Ace, and yes, we're running the AK-12. I didn't even know Ace had a secondary shotgun. Obviously, I didn't. Well, not a secondary shotgun, but an alternative option as a shotgun. I've never seen anyone do that, and absolutely right when you've got the best gun on attack here. 1.5, flash eye to vert grip, best combination with the AK. I can see an argument to say why you'd run a 1X on the AK, because the recoil can be a little bit fruity at times. I think it's okay. I like running the 1.5. P9, muzzle brake laser, guess what? Same every time. And then breaching charges or claymores. I tend to take breaching charges sometimes because I don't want to start using Salmers to open soft hatches. Like, it's such a waste of utility when you could take breaching charges, but claymores as Ace is generally the way. Not generally the way to go, but generally you are relied on putting a claymore down if you're the hard breach or hard support as well. So you just have to see what the rest of the team have got in the locker. On to Zero. This is a good conversation. SC3000K for me is a really solid gun. Look at these stats. You've got 45 damage, 800 fire rate. Like, that's the best of both worlds. Like, the damage is so high. You can even, if you want to, can you put an extended barrel on this? I feel like you can. Yes, you can. You can take the damage up to 50 damage and 800 fire rate. That is insane. You get slightly less capacity at 25, but it's still outrageously good. This is another one of those guns where the 2x just feels right. A bit like Gridlock's gun, Lion's gun, Jackal's gun. The 2x just feels right. And obviously the Vert grip to help you with that recoil. You can use the MP7 on attack. You can use a 1.5, but these stats are just not good on attack. The 32 damage is really poor on attack. Yes, it's got a slightly higher fire rate, but the 1.5 on the MP7 is easy to lose control of. Don't fall into the trap of going, oh, the MP7's amazing on defense. It's going to be good on attack. It's not as good on attack as the SC3000K. As secondary, we're going to take the Gon 6, and hard breach charges is another one of those operators that can do everything himself. If you don't want to take the Gon 6, you don't get the option of putting a muzzle brake and a laser on this. You've just got the laser because the gun comes with a built-in silencer, which I think is probably owed to Zero's Splinter Cell references. On to I'm out of breath here, you know. I hope this is proved helpful to some people who aren't sure what gun to run on some operators, but I'm out of breath here. This is taking it out of me. 38 minutes of non-stop talking so far. On to Flores. We've got an AR-33 and an SR-25, same DMR as Blackbeard. The DMR is okay, but the AR-33 is such a solid gun. Another one of those weapons where the 2x feels just right for me. Flash and vert again as normal. Now, I know sometimes when I'm going into these loadouts, you'll see that I've got a 1.5 on, but then I just said the 2x feels right. So why didn't I have the 2x equipped? Because sometimes when you're in a game, if you've had a bad round and I think, oh, that 2x was a little bit too magnified for me, I need to go to a 1.5. And I'll just change based on like the type of game that I'm having, but generally I will run a 2x on the AR-33. Really, really good gun, by the way. Decent numbers, 41 damage, 749, 750 fire rate. Really, really solid numbers. One of the better guns on attack. I generally always run flashes as well with Flores. I don't think you have to cover runouts that often as Flores, but again, if no one else has got claymores and there's an obvious runout you need to cover, take the claymores instead. Getting towards the end now with OSA, we've got exactly the same conversation with the PDW, exactly like we have with Jackal. We've got a 1.5, a flash, and a vert. Or we've got Thermite's gun at a 5.56, one of my favorite guns in the game. I am so torn with OSA on which gun I think is better. And what I always say is it depends how you're playing OSA. If you're putting the shield far back in the map and you're holding long angles, then yeah, by all means, take the ACOG, take the 2x on the 5.56. If you're getting aggressive and you're getting active with OSA, then take the PDW. This thing is a monster up close and it absolutely shreds. It all just depends how you're playing OSA because there's two different ways of playing it really. PMM, muzzle and laser again. Secondary gadget, you've got to be taking impacts, I think, with OSA, EMP impacts. It's one of the better secondary gadgets anyway, but I think OSA's known for this now. She's there almost as that secondary Thatcher backup along with Dokkaebi, really. If Thatcher's on the board or somebody else has got EMPs, then obviously Smoke's your next best bet. Sense. Sense's gun is actually decent. It received a recoil buff, I believe. So the recoil now is much easier to manage. Failing that, you've got the 417, which is the same weapon as Lion and Twitch is DMR. Again, I'm not a big DMR fan, but if you do, you run 2x muzzle brake vert. But for me, on Sense's POF, I just had to look at what that was called then because I forgot. On the POF, like most things, 1.5 flash-eyed of vert, and you're not going to go far wrong. Gon 6 and hard breach charges. Sense, again, another one of those operators that can do a lot of things on their own. And yeah, you've got to be taking the Gon 6. Given the fact that the POF has a capacity of 50, you're not going to be swapping into your sidearm all that often. The only thing with the POF is the damage is quite low compared to a lot of other attacker guns, but it's not too bad, I don't feel. It's got a drum mag, so the reload is quite fast as well. But yeah, for me, POF, Gon 6 and hard breach charges, and again, 1.5 flash hider and inverter. Grim. He's got the 5.52 just like IQ. I don't know why I've got a suppressor on there. I must have been trying something out, but I would always go extended barrel on the 5.52 because the recoil is absolutely easy enough to manage. So you're getting 52 damage. Yes, the fire rate's a little bit low, but with the extended barrel, that damage is outrageous. It's sort of in the similar sort of region as the para. Yes, the shotgun is one of the better shotguns. If you're getting up close and personal after the shotgun changes, then maybe you could make an argument for this. And if you do, go 1x, vert grip and laser like every other shotgun. The bailiff is a secondary, is a must take for Grim. You can open those soft hatches and soft walls and new lines of sight if you need to. You've got to be taking the bailiff when it's available. Stick a laser sight on it so it makes lines of sight a little bit easier for you. And then we've got breaching charges or hard breach charges, depending on the map. If there's hatches you need to get above, and Grim can play above, by the way, you can fire those bees through the floor. Then take hard breach charges if you've got to open those reinforced hatches. If you're just playing on the same floor, you're probably going to be taking the breaching charges to open soft walls. It's a tough one, that, because where do you play Grim, like above or below? All depends on the map, but you've just got to make that decision looking at what map you're playing really with Grim. On to Brava, exactly the same conversation that we've had about Capitao. 1.5 extended barrel vert grip, absolutely the best option to take, not even a question. 52 damage, 650 fire rate, unbelievably good gun at the minute. The same DMR as Buck. Again, if you're taking it to take a muzzle brake and a vert grip, I'll probably take a ACOG on there. As you can see, I've never used this on Brava, never put a skin on it. Super shorty, stick that laser on, put a silly sight on. I always go with this. Looks ridiculous when you put that sight on a super shorty. Look at that. But you've got to be taking the super shorty over the USP, again, for hatches and walls and lines of sight and what have you. Smokes are the default option for me. I'm not going to say it again. I am, actually. If no one else has got claymores, take them to cover runouts. But if not, you want to be taking them smokes. And finally, last but not least, honestly, I feel tired after this. We're on to RAM. The R4C and the 1.5 is ridiculous. Make sure you're taking it. You can have a 2X, but I think that's a little bit too much. The 1.5 really works well. Get the flash hider and get the vert on there. Get on the secondary shotgun with the ITA. Obviously a 1X scope and a laser. And we're going to be taking the flashes usually with RAM, because you're going to be a little bit more aggressive generally with a RAM than you are like what you'd use a smoke for to cut off lines of sight. Again, if the map fits and you need a smoke, by all means get the smoke in there. But generally, you're going to be a bit more aggressive. So I go R4C 1.5, flash hider vert, ITA, 1X and a laser. Stun grenades. Guys, we've made it. We've gone through every single attacker, what weapon I use, what weapon I think's best, and the loadout for each weapon. You've probably noticed a pattern. Across all weapons, I tend to run flash hider and vert grip. There's some weapons where I'll run a slightly different setup, but ultimately, it's what feels comfortable for you. If you think compensators are better for you or muzzle brakes are better for you, then absolutely put them on each gun. But for me, I just think the setups that I've got there are probably the better way to go, or the more meta way to go for each operator. So there we have it. They're the attachments that I use on different guns. The only things that I change from time to time is I'll sometimes flick between flash hider and muzzle brake on the SMG11, and some guns I'll flick between the 1.5 and the 2X depending how I'm feeling. But what I've shown you there is generally how I play each gun. Obviously try and use extended barrels where you can if you can control the recoil. I really don't think the angle grip gives you the value for taking on less recoil. The aim down sight time isn't that much faster like it used to be. I really think angle grip probably needs a bit of a tweak. If you've watched the video 10 times, if you've watched it for 10 seconds, or if you've watched it for 10 minutes, thank you. Yes, you sat on your phone, your laptop, or wherever you sat watching this video. The channel's nothing without a community that watches it. So I'm genuinely grateful from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for sitting and watching all of this stuff we've been pumping out recently. Thank you. Other than that, we'll see you next time. Cheers.